Dragon Ball has a lot of gods, maybe too many gods. You've got the Guardian of Earth, the North, South, East, and West Kais, the Supreme Kais, Destruction Gods, Angels, and that's just in one universe, with each of the 12 universes having their own identical pantheon, all serving under the Omni King and Grand Priest. But this got me thinking, how do the many gods of Dragon Ball stack up against the gods and deities of other anime series? What if Beerus, the god of destruction and representative deity of Universe 7, battled the gods from other anime series? Does having a high quantity of gods lead to a lack of quality? Let's find out. If you like this kind of stuff, make sure to like and subscribe, and let's jump right in. Spoiler alert for the following series. Now, for this video, there is no way to cover literally every anime that's ever had a god in it. For the most part, I'm going to be focusing on stories and characters that I already know about and are explicitly referred to as gods at some point. To begin, let's do a quick overview of what Beerus is capable of, as Beerus is weirdly one of the strangest characters to scale in Dragon Ball history. Not only does his power wildly vary between the anime and manga continuities, but his power seemingly varies between individual arcs of the show, even though he technically never trains or gets stronger. As early as the Battle of Gods movie, Beerus wasn't originally intended to be that far beyond Goku, being a 10 while Goku was considered to be a 6. This gap originally being so small that Goku could have surpassed Beerus during the movie if he hadn't run out of energy. While they are not connected to the original movie, the early parts of Dragon Ball Super somewhat keep this trend. For example, in both anime and manga continuities, it's implied that even though he was ultimately stronger than Goku using Super Saiyan God, Goku was either the second strongest person Beerus had ever fought, or that Beerus had outright used his full power against Goku. It's here where Beerus becomes the goalpost man, because despite Goku training and achieving a form at least 50 times more powerful than the form supposedly capable of making Beerus go all out, he's still weaker. This trend continues in both the anime and manga for the next several arcs, until we reach the Torment of Power, as the anime and manga go down two very different paths. In the manga, Beerus has yet to be surpassed, with even Black Frieza just now approaching the level of gods of destruction. Meanwhile, in the anime, we get told repeatedly that Jiren and Mastered Ultra Instinct Goku have outright surpassed Beerus's power. Now, that could easily be retconned like it already has been in the past, but for now, Beerus does not sit at the peak of power hierarchy of actual active fighters, losing to Broly, Beast Gohan, and any Goku and Vegeta fusion. Still, this means that he massively dwarfs or directly scales to any feat done by these fighters, like his own macrocosm destroying clash with Goku that retroactively turned out to be a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent of his true power. Guidebooks support the idea that Beerus's power is a step up from the overall cosmology of Universe 7, as numerous statements exist for his power being in another dimension beyond the dimensions of, or super dimensional compared to other warriors. As a god of destruction, Beerus has some of the strongest abilities in the verse, including rudimentary Ultra Instinct, the existence erasing Hakai, and the ability to seal other beings away in objects. But will this be enough to take on other gods? Let's get into it. So for a nice warm-up round, let's begin with the death god Ryuk from Death Note. Now, as is the nature of Death Note, Ryuk doesn't actually do any fighting in the story and instead just kind of floats around and watches the impact the Death Note he dropped has on the world. Now, obviously, stats-wise, there is no way for Ryuk to actually keep up with Beerus in a pure fight, but could he hypothetically write Beerus's name in the Death Note and kill him that way? And actually, we have an answer to this question. 100% no. Now, most debates revolving around the Death Note is if a person like, say, Superman or Goku counts as a human under the Death Note's rules, but there are plenty of other rules in the Death Note as well. Notably, the rule that the Death Note can't kill anyone over 124 years old. Beerus is at least millions of years old, so we can just avoid all semantic debates because he clearly falls outside the book's jurisdiction. Even though Ryuk is an invisible ghost, he still isn't safe, as Beerus can easily erase intangible ghosts from existence. Beerus is winning this one, probably in his sleep. Next up, we have a very different interpretation for what it means to be a god, being Truth from Full Metal Alchemist. Now, Truth within the actual story of FMA is never really given a full explanation besides what they personally say about themselves. They are the world, the universe, God, truth, all one and inside every person. Guidebooks for Full Metal Alchemist do actually back up everything Truth is saying here, explaining that they quite literally are the truth of the universe, the equation that creates literally everything in existence. In the story, story, truth usually only shows up when someone uses human transmutation without a philosopher's stone, forcing them to trade in something as a punishment for going against the natural order, something that originally sets the story in motion. Regardless, the truth is quite literally everything in Fullmetal Alchemist combined on a universal scale. So how does he compare to Beerus? Now, if the characters in Fullmetal Alchemist were actually powerful, truth might have stood a chance, but unfortunately, being the god of a verse where even the strongest beings aren't even planetary isn't a good sign. At best, truth would have the cumulative power of an entire universe. Unfortunately, we've seen what Beerus can do to a single universe. Now, a trend you may be noticing is that in most manga, the gods of the story rarely do any of the actual fighting, as opposed to Dragon Ball. This cannot be said for the gods in Record of Ragnarok. In this manga, gods from different real-life pantheons fight against superpowered versions of real-life historical figures in a one-on-one tournament. Everything from Buddhist to Shinto to Greek to Norse gods are all here. Instead of literally scaling every god, we'll focus on pretty much the strongest god in the story, Zeus, and use him as an essential ceiling for everyone else. Now, most of the feats done by weaker humans and gods aren't extremely impressive. Lubu is able to split clouds, which is a mountain level feat, and gods like Thor are implied to have planet busting power. Zeus casually exceeds both of these from a pure feat standpoint. One of the first things we learn about Zeus is that he was present for the Big Bang and found it exciting in the same way as a fight, implying he tanked it in some capacity. Now, of course, the circumstances are vague, but the Big Bang can range anywhere from multi-galaxy to, unsurprisingly, universe levels of power. This becomes even more impressive given that this was base Zeus who tanked it, as in flashbacks we see he seemingly does not have the transformations he has later on in life that give him a massive amp in power. In his strongest form of Adamas Zeus, it's stated that Zeus would probably destroy heaven itself. As for speed, we are actually given the exact time frame for how fast Zeus attacks, putting him at bare minimum faster than light. The manga then kind of implies that he copies Kronos' fist that surpasses time-space and could throw a punch in literally 0 time, aka infinite speed. But this is something he only does once and doesn't scale to in his normal power or speed regardless. So does Zeus stand a chance? Just like the gods before, not at all. At best, Zeus can throw a single punch at similar speeds to Beerus, and even then, if he was punching with universal strength, it would still be infinitely lower than what Beerus can do. You can throw in all of the other gods and it wouldn't matter because all of them are inferior to Zeus's power and would get destroyed by the god of destruction even harder. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention one of the most blatant examples of a god in all of manga, God from One Punch Man. Now, this character is also extremely hard to fully talk about because 1, we've barely seen him, 2, we barely know anything objective about him, and 3, his powers have been retconned multiple times now. The biggest thing God has done so far in the story is empowering Monster Garo and turning him into Cosmic Fear Garo, making him immensely more powerful and strong enough to momentarily become a rival to Saitama. In this fight, their clash causes a gigantic explosion that blows a huge hole in the night sky. This would put them anywhere from multi-solar system to multi-galaxy level in power. This is impressive because this was all from a fraction of the power God gave Garo, and given that he is still implied to be a looming threat even after Garo's defeat, probably means he's far stronger than even that. Originally, before the retcon, we knew that God created actually a higher dimension, the same dimension that was used by Empty Void to attack the dimension cutting slash. I talked about this before in my Goku vs Saitama video, but even if God did make this higher dimensional space, this would still be inferior to the statements and feats shown by Beerus. Until God steps up and actually throws hands with Saitama and shows what he's capable of, the verse is remaining both a Goku and a Beerus victim. Finally, for this video, I'd like to talk about Shibai, the literally omnipotent god from Naruto and Boruto. Now, like many of the gods in this video, Shibai has mostly remained as a distant presence in the story, but that doesn't make him any less hyped up. Like I just alluded to, his main ability is literally called Omnipotence, which works by literally rewriting the code of the universe to make things as the person wants them to be. We've seen weaker characters like Ada use inferior versions of Shibai's omnipotence to swap people's lives around around, make it so pretty much everyone's memories showed the same thing. More importantly, Shibai himself is stated to have literally transcended the dimension of the main Boruto universe, existing in a higher non-physical plane beyond everyone, and that he created the universe as it exists today. Of all the gods so far, Shibai might have the best chance. His ability is insanely broken, being reality warping with very few limits on a seemingly beyond universal scale, given that the omnipotence can affect those outside the main universe. However, hacks means nothing if there is a power disadvantage, especially against Beerus. As we've seen, gag characters and non-physical beings completely get annihilated by Beerus. So while it's nice that Shibai made a universe and exists beyond it, that doesn't save him from getting Hakkai'd by a real god. So yeah, at least from the gods I know about, none of them even come close to taking on Beerus. I guess a purple cat was too much for them. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, thank you to my members, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya!